Hello, I'm Steve Lockard, Managing Director at OpenMinds. And today I'd like to walk you through a summary version of the OpenMinds Grid Vision Plan. On April 15th, over 110 grid experts met at Stanford to fine-tune our roadmap for what the grid needs to become. We appreciate Stanford hosting us there. We also really appreciate the great support that Bain has provided to us in development of OpenMinds in general and of the Grid Vision Plan. We'd also like to thank over 100 members of OpenMinds that have contributed to this work and continue to make significant contributions to the OpenMinds team. Our network is made up of a broad group of industry leaders across energy sectors, renewables and oil and gas, investors, NGOs, developers of transmission, builders, partners in various aspects of this energy ecosystem. We greatly appreciate their expertise and the fine-tuning of our plan along the way. So what is our vision? It's to both optimize the grid we have today while also building new transmission, new grid that's also required to address the challenge. And the problem we're trying to solve is really around providing abundant, reliable, affordable power to meet the high load growth demand that we're all seeing. It's about American prosperity. Energy is needed to do that. At the same time, we need to be reducing emissions and cleaning up the energy sources. Over the last 20 years, electricity demand in the U.S. has been relatively flat, on the order of 0.3% per year. That's changing. The next 10 years, we're on a track to more like 3.5% per year. And in some pockets where data centers are being aggressively built out, those numbers can be as much as 8 to 10% per year. So what's driving this? Yes, data center load growth demand, but also electrification of many things within our industrial systems and reshoring of manufacturing in some cases. We're also all becoming more aware. Electricity rates are becoming a problem. In places like California, the Northeast, electricity rates can be 25 to 30 cents per kilowatt hour. It's way too high. And in other parts of the country, rates have also increased in a significant way. This is being driven by, in some cases, the surge of demand, but also in other cases, just infrastructure that's been lacking in investment over a period of time, weather effects, fuel cost volatility, supply chain and tariff-related cost impacts. Affordability is a real challenge that needs to be addressed. China is showing us a bit of what can be done. China is leading us today in terms of electrification growth rate, the miles of transmission they're building, the state-of-the-art technology that they're using to do so in HVDC, and their speed to permitting and speed to construction. So while China is showing us the way, the U.S. is still well positioned to take advantage of our assets. Energy is abundant in our country. We continue to be innovators. We have strong capital markets if we can put forward the business case for investment to be made in this area. So what are those types of investments? And what's the challenge from an overview? In order to meet the 3.5% load growth, we basically need to unlock 800 gigawatts of capacity over a 10-year period, from 1,300 gigawatts today to something like 2,100 gigawatts by 2035. In both the optimize and new build buckets, we have 5 solution areas where that investment needs to be made. The first 3 in the optimized bucket, including advanced transmission technologies, things like dynamic line rating, advanced reconductoring, that we think we can get on the order of 150 of the 800 gigawatts by investments in that space. There's a fair amount of distributed generation that's being planned and aggressively built, a lot of it from natural gas, some from solar and other technologies that are emerging. We think roughly 150 gigawatts can come from that bucket. And then just adding batteries to the system to firm up existing wind and solar throughout the distribution and distributed system can greatly benefit the system as well by shifting peak loads, by providing dispatchable or near dispatchable energy when it's needed. Plus, demand flexibility can play a role here as well. So very important contributions can come from just optimizing the grid we have today. But that by itself is not enough. We also need new builds, and we need to be more aggressive in terms of the timeline, the permitting, the speed to getting this stuff built and installed into the system, both in region and inter-regional, or connecting the regional seams. Something like 250 gigawatts could come from in region, and on the order of 100 gigawatts needs to come and can come from connecting our regional seams. So our grid needs to change, fundamentally needs to change. It needs to be connected, flexible, reliable. It needs to be able to scale. We need changes in policy. We need to advance our technology, and we need market related changes as well. So how do we see some of these solutions being deployed around the country? These maps show with the size of the bubbles and where they're located, many of the data centers that are being built and the size of those data centers. So first is deploy advanced transmission technologies at scale, roughly 50 to 100 gigawatts of advanced reconductoring, 70 gigawatts or so of grid enhancing technologies, distributed resources, solar and gas generation on site to the tune of about 200 gigawatts, battery storage capacity and flexible demand on the order of 250 gigawatts or so. And a lot of this can be managed through virtual power plants in order to manage the demand flexibility and the local stored energy as well. In terms of in-region transmission, we need to build out about 6,500 miles annually of in-region transmission using the latest state-of-the-art HVDC technology where we can. And lastly, a bit more of a national transmission backbone and some seam interconnects. And even with 500 miles of the seam interconnects, we can connect some regions so that the electricity in those areas can be both more affordable and reliable. It's taking advantage of having the electrical system being bigger than some of the weather patterns and making use of those resources as they exist within region, getting them across those regional seams to the benefit of others. So what are the ultimate imperatives by 2035? It's 8,000 miles of state-of-the-art reconductoring. It's 7 times the virtual power plant capacity, 2.5 times distributed capacity, 7 times the amount of transmission built, doubling the cross-team interconnections, 3,000 more miles of HVDC. These feel like ambitious goals, and they are, but yet they're doable if we put our mind to it. And it's what's needed in order to transform the grid to help with the solution set that we need. We're all a number of stakeholders coming from different spaces, but we all have a role to play in this. Our utilities can help commit to dual track, both optimizing and building. Our tech vendors demonstrate your technology, prove that it's ready for prime time. The equipment OEMs help us unlock some of the bottlenecks on supply chain and other constraints that are in our way. For developers, help to prioritize and accelerate investments in these areas. Data center operators can put capital and demand signals on the table to help the solutions. Investors investing in the transmission system. RTOs, federal and state regulators and legislators helping with the constraints that come with planning, permitting, and paying in their areas. Nonprofits, some of the NGOs, help with addressing the dual challenge broadly of energy and emissions. And thought leaders, many of our CEOs in our network, help us to change the narrative so we can help get more of this work accomplished in a reasonable time frame. OpenMinds is focused on 6 implementation initiatives to help address the needs of the grid. One is the Grid Vision Plan itself, just putting down on paper a roadmap of what the art of the possible here is, and how do we make it practical? How do we break it down into pieces that can be accomplished? Number 2 is both federal and state-related policies. We're working to try to educate around the benefits of permitting reform at the federal level and intend to do so at the state level as well. Microsoft is helping to lead an effort on AI planning to help accelerate and ease some of the planning burden, along with ThinkLabs and EPRI as supporters of that work. EPRI, Quant, and RMI are helping to lead advanced transmission technologies. how do we accelerate the deployment of those technologies? We have a list of 18 shovel-ready transmission interconnect lines that Rob and the team at Grid Strategies helped to develop that can unlock 65 gigawatts in a cost-effective way. Critically important initiative, all by starting construction all by 2030. This transmission work can be accelerated, needs to be accelerated in order to address the needs. And then lastly, over time, we'd like to see a little bit of a larger backbone on the transmission system and are considering a speed to power loop to help do so with some of our larger utilities and IPP members. So that's a brief summary of our Grid Vision Plan. If you have other ideas as to how we can fine tune the plan, if you're willing to help support the communication and education around this roadmap to the future, please reach out and let us know. You can get your own copy of this summary version of the plan at our OpenMinds website in the resources tab. But for now, we appreciate your time, willingness to hear this out. And again, please reach out if there are ways that we can work together for mutual benefit. Thanks so much.